In 2014, the Department of Communications, Climate Action and the Environment, and the Department of Culture, Heritage and the Gaeltacht commissioned and funded 2 studies by public tender for novel research of protected species in our offshore waters.
The ObSERVE programme involved 3 years of data acquisition in our offshore, looking at seabirds, looking at cetaceans, and indeed finding other species along the way like sharks.
High quality information is essential if we are to ensure that development in the marine and in the offshore is sustainable at the same time as conserving the species that we need to conserve.
I think we always knew that Irish waters were a great place for a whole range of species of whales and dolphins, but we knew very little about offshore waters. You know, it's a very challenging environment to work in, and I think the ObSERVE project really gave us the opportunity to measure and provide really robust data on the distribution, the abundance, and even the behaviour and ecology of some of these species we rarely see alive.
For ObSERVE Aerial, a team from University College Cork was contracted to take to the skies over the summers and winters of 2015 and 2016 to detect key species.
So this was the first time that we had really undertaken such a large-scale project, and as I said, it was the first time that we'd ever used the aerial survey approach, whereas traditionally we would have used boat-based surveys. But we saw lots of different species that we were not expecting. But in addition to that, I think we saw species that we knew were present in wintertime, but we just had no estimate of abundance for them. So we would have known through strandings programs, for example, that the animals were present.
Specialised aircraft allowed trained observers to record their sightings and log their data. The study found numbers larger than expected, with over 500,000 seabirds recorded.
The ObSERVE aerial surveys is really the first time we've been able to get really good survey coverage, particularly for things like seabirds and marine mammals in the offshore waters in both summer and in winter. And the real novel aspect of this was that we did it in 2 summers and 2 winters. So we can really look at differences between years and interannual changes in the distribution and abundance of these species.
Through the ObSERVE programme's aerial research, a variety of interesting seabird findings was produced.
One of the more spectacular ones we have is the northern gannet. It's our largest seabird, and we saw quite large abundances of those. Even a very long ways offshore, we saw them over 350 kilometres offshore on foraging trips.
Meanwhile, ObSERVE Acoustic, led by the Galway Mayo Institute of Technology, used underwater equipment to record calls and clicks made by whales, dolphins and porpoises. Over a 3-year period, they monitored how numbers rose and fell from season to season, year on year.
So if we go out and we do passive acoustic monitoring, we could go on a vessel and we can tow a piece of equipment called a hydrophone behind the vessel. So by towing that through areas, we can do visual monitoring where we can pick up certain species. So the animals could be at depth and they could be vocalizing, and those hydrophones will allow us to detect that presence, and it gives us a whole different way to map distribution and abundance and presence of these animals. Then the second type that we use is static acoustic monitoring, and that's where we will have specific types of devices that we will go out and deploy in a specific area. And that is extremely important because it gives us information on cetaceans at those sites over a very long time period.
Over 20 species were picked up in all, ranging from humpback and minke whales to the common dolphin.
Whales and dolphins use a very highly adapted vocalization. So you have the toothed whales, the odontocetes, which use echolocation. They can click, they actually click their nostrils, and then they receive the echo back through their lower jaw into their ear. So these echolocation clicks are very specific to the individual, so they have specific peak frequencies. So using the algorithms developed by JASCO for the static acoustics and the PAMGuard system from the towed hydrophone, you can look at the characteristic of that click. Where's the peak frequency, where's the energy, and say that belongs to a certain species. Whereas the baleen whales, they use a much lower frequency vocalization, but it travels a long, long way. It can travel hundreds and hundreds of kilometers. When you mix the acoustic survey with the aerial survey, which is based on visuals, you put the two together and you get a much deeper insight to what's going on, because both systems complement each other. And that was a good thing about ObSERVE, that we weren't just using one technique, we were using a variety of techniques to get that better understanding.
In the spring of 2018, this phase of data gathering came to an end and reports were published.
This information will now be used for the purposes of conservation strategy, but also that anyone who wants to use our marine space, that this data is there to assist to make sure that we protect our marine environment.
However this information will be used, the team know their work is not over and are looking to what the next phase of the programme will be.
I think the further research into the future can focus on two things really. One would be area-based work, where we look in more detail at areas of ecological importance that have been highlighted by the previous research. And I think the second area where we can focus would be on best ways to manage activities. The ObSERVE programme is really very much designed to collect high quality information that will inform conservation and management. And so what we need to do are think about the next management steps and undertake research that will address some of those management gaps and also point the best way forward for management into the future so that we can have sustainable development and conservation operating side by side.